To be honest, I learned or realized when I saw the movie Three Idiots actually. In the end, where that the guy says that run behind excellence and not behind success. Success would come on its own, and it actually makes sense, to be honest, because every time you're trying to just enjoy or become expert at something, you will get the result uh, way later or earlier. I mean, depending on your luck, but you will get it. It will come on its due time. You don't have to worry about the result because then you'll lose focus on excelling.
Hello and welcome to Vikram's Incredible 1000, the Success Podcast. On this, we look to interview the best of the best and understand how do they get extraordinary results at what they do so that we can use all of that information and apply it in our own lives. Today, I have with me one of India's most mysterious sportsmen. I say mysterious because he's a sailor. He's presently ranked fourth in Asia in a J20 class of boat. He's a multiple-time national medalist in various classes of boats and a four-time youth national champion. He's also completed his MSc in international business as well as an MBA. And in his undergrad, where I know him from, he was a university gold medalist. Today, he's an entrepreneur and he's the director of Sportifying India, which looks towards the upliftment and unification of offbeat and adventure sports. It's my privilege to be interviewing today Abhimanyu Panwar. Bro, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Vikram. It's all honor is mine, and it's wonderful to be on your show. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I'm quite excited though for the whole interview because since I know you for such a long time, it's like a cool conversation that I'm going to have with a friend, and it's going to be recorded, so it's the best part.
Totally, dude. So, with all that you have achieved as a sportsman and now moving into the next phase of your life, and you're still pretty young. I'm going to keep saying that.
Yeah.
What I would like to know from you is, Abhimanyu, what drives you to be extraordinary and incredible?
I mean, it's a very good question though. I mean, too intense. But I mean, for me personally, what keeps me driving is to achieve a goal where I want to learn as much as possible and grow as a person. I mean, that's the kind of person I've been throughout my life, and I like learning stuff and to excel in them. I mean, I hate losing. I'm a very bad loser. So I try winning or try giving my best at whatever I do, and it's just that like 5 year or 10 year down the line, I want to be expert at certain things which I'm doing, and that's what keeps me driving. I mean, overall. So yeah.
So is it so much as it is the desire to win, or is it the need to not lose? Which one would you say is more important to you?
I think need to not lose is is what keeps me on the edge. I mean, I don't mind losing as long as I learn something from it. I mean, for me personally, every time that I've taken a loss, it's actually better than winning because you tend to learn something which in future you would not want to repeat. And if you don't repeat that, that's a good success. I mean, for me, that's been the case. Every time in a national I've lost, or some races that have not gone well, it's always taught me something new. And the thing is, you always have to move on with each loss, but keeping all the learnings with it. So I mean, that's been the case for me.
Some pretty empowering stuff there. What I would so what I'd like to know from you is, why sailing? Why did you take this up? And what was about doing something different and offbeat that was appealing to you? And really, what has taking up this sport taught you so far? How has it shaped you to be the person that you are today?
Yeah, I mean, even I keep asking myself why sailing. I mean, whenever I talk to people and they give me this reaction, what is sailing? So even I think, why did I take up sailing? Because it's hard to explain, to be honest. But what had happened was that I right from my childhood I've been very active in sports. My parents have always pushed me to excel in sports especially. And so one fine day I used to love sea swimming and stuff, and my dad was in the coast guard, so we had a little bit of background in that. um, but what had happened, I'd gone for a party, met few people, and I was actually helping an NGO in that event. And I met the commodore of a sailing club. Back then, the sailing club is called Royal Madras Yacht Club. It's a 100-year-old club started by the British, so a lot of heritage there. And the commodore was quite nice. He was very humble. He said, "I'll take you sailing next Sunday." So the idea was not to. I didn't know that you could compete, or it is a serious sport as such. I'd just gone there to have fun, over the weekend, because I used to go every Sunday to sail. So so I'd gone there. I saw all these fancy boats. It looked like something, unique. And when I started it off, the best part was that you could take your own decision at the age of, suppose, I was when I started I was 12, but I was quite late for all the people who were sailing, because they start off at 7. All the kids, they start off by 7 to 9. Yeah, so at 12 I felt so empowered because I could take my own decision, learn from my mistake, and there would be people to guide you, but you could always experiment. And we were at the mercy of nature. I mean, because there are 5 to 6 elements that a person has to think while sailing, and every time you go out sailing, the condition is going to be different. At least one of this element is going to change, so you're never going to have the same condition. So it's like every time you go out, you're experiencing something new, and you tend to learn something or the other. And best is, I used to like competing. So when I started off sailing and I started winning, it's when I got hooked onto it. I was like, okay, now I can take it up as a sport, and I can continue. And at the age of 14, if you are a national champion, it's like a big thing because suddenly you get so much recognition from everyone around. It was just a good feeling. But apart from that, the sport has really taught me a lot of things, especially from leadership point of view, and also how to work with team and people, and the community aspect. How you socialize with people, how you meet people, how you learn from others. It's been a quite a good journey, and overall, it taught me that you have to start living in present, because often this happens that we worry about too much about the future, and we often keep living in past. So that's the case half the time. But when you go out sailing each day, your whole focus is out there while sailing, because you totally disconnect from the land and everything that you're thinking. So at that moment, you're just taking decision for that moment and not for everything else. Like, you can't take a call right now for next 3 days in sailing. You have to take a call for that moment. And that's been one of the key learning for me, or key things which keeps me going while sailing. So yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot of deep stuff there.
Yeah.
Clearly, I can see that
I know.
the uh, uh, the the impact of sailing has definitely transformed you into the person that you are today, from what I can hear. So, I would also like to know, on that note, how has your journey as a sportsman prepared you for the path of entrepreneurship that you're now on?
Yeah, I mean, these are quite common stuff that everyone know. But for me personally, what it has done, like I said a few minutes back, is that while competing, or while being a sportsman, you tend to learn a lot of life skills which a book cannot teach you, or a theory session at school cannot teach you. Because when you're practically applying all these things, you're always learning something. Like, even losing teaches you so much. Like, those emotions can only be felt, and you can experiment those things. You can afford to lose while competing, whereas in life you would not have that opportunity. Often people who lose, they end up taking up strong decisions. Being a sportsman, I think everyone should have, personally should follow a sport, or play a sport, because what it does is it also keeps you in touch with reality and the people that are around you, because often people when they come to play they leave everything else and they always discuss or be in that field, and they bring or present best of themselves. I mean, when you're competing, everyone wants to compete at their best, and that's when you actually get to know a lot of life lessons. I mean, that's what sportsmanship has taught me, and the same things are applying now in my entrepreneurship journey, because it has the same principles. I mean, if I have to lead a team, I should know how I should talk to them, how I can make them comfortable, and what are the key decisions. Like I said, while sailing, you take so many decisions that I don't feel afraid of taking decision now in my entrepreneurship journey. That is because I'm used to of taking decisions in pressure, and used to of taking calls. So and end of the day, I know who, if things go wrong, I know I have to put myself out there, and if things are going right, it is about the team, and you have to push your team to do your work. I mean, whatever the overall goal is. So sportsmanship teaches a lot. I mean, and I think it's an important skill that each kid, especially in the school journey, should start off with.
Mhm. I'm sure it's something you can relate with. Get it?
Yeah,
Sportsmanship,
yeah.
entrepreneurship.
I mean, take your example itself. I mean, when I know you from college, right? And we all were in the sports department. We all can just come and connect. I mean, that's one place where you can come and socialize and build good bonds.
Hmm. Totally, I completely agree with that. From whatever you shared so far, some of the things that I understood was that in order to get on board to achieve something, sports really prepares you for life and allows you to it makes you a great decision maker. It teaches you many life skills that does not necessarily come from any traditional path. And clearly you said that it has transformed you into a leader, and it's much easier to transition into the leadership role when you've already been doing this for some length of time, and when you're four-time youth national champion, I think that that job becomes a lot easier, right?
Yeah, I mean, especially currently the boat that I'm sailing, it's called JAT, where I have to have at least 3 to 5 people in a team, where I'm leading a team for an event. So, and we have about 12 races. So each race is where you can learn, like you can make mistakes, you can do wonderful, and that's where all these team skills come in place, because one person screws up, the whole team ends up bearing the loss. So these are few skills which also imply in the entrepreneurship journey as well. It's about team building and how you can get the right kind of people together to get your goals. So sailing JAT side by side is also been a good journey for me.
That's really nice to hear. So I'd like to know, during your earliest days, as early as you can remember, what made it possible for you to excel? Traditionally in a sports career, you might say that 12 is kind of late, but still you managed
Yeah.
to you managed to take the horse by the reins, and you managed to get results pretty quickly. So what was it about what you did? What was different compared to what other people were doing, who are possibly doing it for a longer period of time? What accelerated your performance, and what allowed you to succeed faster than most other people?
When I look back and I try creating a difference between me and my friends, the only thing that I feel was different is that I wasn't worrying about the result. The whole idea was always to just go enjoy and excel. You give your best. Whatever result comes will be based on how much ever hard work you put, or whatever your thinking is, or however you prepared yourself. I mean, there are people who have been training for whole year, and imagine if you're training only for 6 months and then you go beat them. It's just bad for the other person because he's been working so hard for a year. So the skill does play a role, but often what happens is that I've seen in my friends who are competing with me, that they take too much pressure about the result. They're always thinking about coming first, or about, they're too focused and stressed out about the result part of it, whereas they were not focusing on excelling in the part, or something that they should have worked on, which would have got them the result. So they always missed that step. And for me, I always had, like, I mean, I never had it in my back of the mind that I have to come first or something like that. It was always the next event, and the idea that I want to just go enjoy. Like it was like a festival for me. From school you go out, you just go play. That's where you start enjoying. You meet your friends and whatever. That journey was much more important than the whole result aspect, because there have been so many events that I've not won, but I have good memories of it. So for me, it wasn't really the winning part of it. Winning is obviously like the cream on the cake, but the idea is to just enjoy the cake. Right? That's what I've always kept for myself, and that's how I keep going at it. I mean, if you start worrying about the success and everything, you'll just get stuck, and you won't be able to actually enjoy the sport, or the things that you like doing and why you're doing it, and even the learning stops, I feel, because then you're too concentrated on certain things or certain aspects that you miss out on the larger picture.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean,
Very, very
that's where
interesting.
I think.
It's a minute point that you're mentioning here, but the impact is like huge. We often
I
get
think
caught
so.
up. We often get caught up in the final result, and I think that impedes, just like you said, what's going on in the moment. What are we doing right now in order to take care of what we can, and then worry about the result later, because the result is going to be based on what we're doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, this to be honest, I learned or realized when I saw the movie Three Idiots, actually. In the end, where that the guy says that, run behind excellence and not behind success would come on its own. And it actually makes sense, to be honest, because every time you're trying to just enjoy or become expert at something, you will get the result uh, way later or earlier, I mean, depending on your luck, but you will get it. It will come on its due time. You don't have to worry about the result, because then you'll lose focus on excelling. That is something impacted me way back, and that's what I've kept for myself. So whenever I start thinking about too much, getting stressed about result, I should get this, that, whatever, then I go back to points where I'm missing out to actually get that.
Mm-hmm. Crazy, crazy. Nice to hear that. So, um, next, I'd like to know from you, what is it specifically that you would say? I mean, you did mention that there are different things that you need to manage whenever you're sailing, but what is it specifically that you feel makes it so challenging? And are there any things that you do mentally to cope with these challenges when you're training or you're in competition?
I mean, sailing is a sport. It's physical as well as mental, and it also depends on the type of boat that you're sailing. So it's a combination of a lot of things. And to be honest, it's more like nature. Like I said, there are 5 to 6 elements that a person has to think about. It's more like playing chess at sea. So there's imagine playing chess and also doing the physical aspect of it to play. So it's a mix of both, and it all depends on the type of boat you're sailing. And yeah, so it's been a little complex part of it. But mentally, what I have been doing is, because like I said, in sailing, what happens is we have multiple races. There are different formats, but the most popular format is called the fleet racing, where everyone starts together and you do multiple races, and then your total is taken, and whoever has the least score wins. So idea is, it's almost like having one running race where you all start together. And if you finish first, it's good. And then you keep doing 12 races, and your scores for each race would be calculated at the end. And if you have the least, you win. Mentally, every day is challenging, because you'll go through a lot of ups and downs. Like it's very hard to be consistent in each race or get consistent results. I mean, the top five would always be consistent in terms of the results. So for me, mentally, what I used to do is, I used to always, after the races, give quick thought as to where I went wrong, and what all things I shouldn't do for the next race. And after end of the day, I would just give it a thought while coming back, while sailing back, because we often go out quite far to sail at sea. And when we come back, we have enough time, about 20 to 30 minutes, to reach the shore. So that's when I used to give a lot of thought on the kind of things that I've done. And once I'm on land, I used to completely, forget or disconnect from the racing point of view, because I didn't want to take it back or take it to the next day, because your racing is 12 hours and then you have another 12 hours. The rest 12 hours is difficult moment, because that's where you start thinking more, and you get to indulge in it, and you miss the fact that tomorrow is a new day, and you can always start off fresh. So that's the point where I used to disconnect, is something that I used to keep in mind mentally. And physically, you have to keep training every day. I mean, you can't skip days. There's often, even if you don't work out like extremely hard, you should just walk. I mean, I make sure that I at least go for 30 minutes of walk, even if I'm not working out. Like, there are days you don't want to work out, you don't have motivation, and everyone can say you can listen to videos and go, but some days you just don't want to. So that those days I just make sure I just go for a walk, or at least make sure that I'm keeping myself active. It's it I That's what I've kept for myself, physically and mentally. The idea to disconnect, and to make sure that little bit of activity is happening.
So it's a small things that really you feel have allowed you to shape yourself to make that larger impact. So just to keep on track, you do certain things. You have these tiny rituals for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, small things make a huge difference. I mean, in sailing, what we say is that everyone knows the logic, yeah, but the difference between a professional and an amateur is just the fact that the professional knows how much rope to ease in or how much to pull, or the slightest of movement. It is almost in 1 mm, 2 mm, and that comes with feeling and practice. I'm sure even in table tennis, when you play, there are certain shots you could just play it blindly, and you know that if the ball comes here, you have to hit it this way. So it's just that fine things which make a huge difference. I mean, there was one person, that person who he's a 5-time Asian game medalist from India, world champion, everything. And when once I was sitting with him, and he was aligning all the screws in the flow of water. I mean, imagine those tiny screws. You have a massive boat which displaces water, and then he's aligning those screw, the top where you put the screwdriver, right? He's aligning that towards the water, and then I just told him, "How does this make a difference? This is just like nobody would give a thought about this." He's like, "See, when two boats are together and they're going close to finish, these small things are what going to make the difference. I mean, when two people are equal, it's just these minute details which are going to make the difference between you and
Yeah, I mean, like if you look at some of the best in the world, especially in sports, just like a few seconds separating the best from maybe, I mean, if you look at swimming, for example, or even rowing or sailing, it's always like a fraction of a second can actually mean the difference between
yeah.
winning and not winning.
I mean, you take athletics, the 100 meter, this thing, it takes 4 years time for an athlete to cut down 1 second. Like 1 second for us is nothing in a normal life. But imagine a person has to work 4 years, just to cut down 1 second. So that's the kind of difference, small things can make.
Absolutely. So we can agree on this one thing. What happens in 1 second can change your life.
Totally. I agree that.
So now, with all that we have shared, clearly you have excelled both in sports and in terms of your career. I'd like to know, how does one go about balancing the two? How does one make those important choices? Do I go about choosing sports as my profession? Do I choose a more reliable, uh, more realistic career of maybe getting a job? What would you advise for this? Because clearly you have done well in both, and I'd like to know whether this was consistent throughout your life. And I mean, how does it impact your choice, and what advice would you have with regard to this?
It's actually a very tough question, to be honest, the balancing act. Because I mean, for me personally, what happened was that my parents used to force me for sports. I mean, all credit goes to my parents, because they used to force me to go out and play different sports and experience whatever was available. But at the same time, they would just tell me that, it is important that you study as well, because no matter how great a sportsman you become, your basics would still come from your education, and the kind of personality that you develop also comes from the education point of view. And like often you would see there are great sportsmen who have done really well, but they would not know how to conduct themselves, or speak the right words, or present themselves or make it presentable. And that does make a difference. I mean, I've seen this with a lot of athletes who are extremely good but have lost out on these skills. And for me, it was always like, for my parents, it was very important that that I would keep my education first when two things clash. Like, there was a time when 2014 Asian Game trials were happening, and I had my college exams. Like, college exam, we could have just bunked. I mean, the college was very supportive, university was very supportive, but my parents were like, see, once you leave that education point, and you go into other things, it's very hard for you to come back and complete it the right way, and you would actually miss out on the journey that is also important. So for you, I mean, for a person's point of view, it is very important that you take the decision where you start thinking what is more important for you at that moment. Don't worry about the future point of view. But at that moment, for me, I thought education was important, because if I'm done with that, because I don't really like writing exams, so I always want to finish it off in one go. It's almost like I don't want to fail because I don't want to write it the second time. It's more like that. It's not because I want to score great or something like that. I had no interest. But what I also used to do is give my 100% even there. So when I'm studying something, I have the exam tomorrow, I would make sure that I try studying as much as possible. That tomorrow I don't regret, oh, I could have just studied, and then I have to write the paper again 6 months later. So I didn't want to struggle 6 months later. That is the whole point. I just wanted to get done with that. Balancing also comes with the kind of people you surround with. For me, education became easier because my friends were nice. They would help me out. They would, give me notes. They would always keep me up to date. And that is very important, the kind of friends and the people are around you. Even for sailing, there were few competitions where I would write exams and go directly to the sailing club, and everything would be ready. All I had to do was just jump into the boat and go and sail. So it's very important that you have right people to support you, and that would only come with you talking to people and building that kind of relations.
Mm-hmm. Crazy, crazy. Since you brought that up, I would like to know, um, what has your support system been like, and what role has support played on your journey, both in the fields of sport and even in entrepreneurship? What's the role of support been like?
I mean, I've been lucky, touch wood, that my parents, my sister, have always been very supportive, and even my friends, to be honest. I mean, whatever way they could be supportive, they've always been supportive. My parents, because I'll tell you this, I've been sailing for about 12 to 13 years now. Okay, my monthly bill for sailing club comes to about 3 to 4 thousand rupees, or even back then it was quite high for a kid. But my dad and my mom have come to the sailing club only once. Like, they've been a member, they've been everything, but they've never come. And every time my monthly bill would come, I would just go tell dad that this is the money I need. He would just give me the money and say, okay, go. And the idea of him putting that confidence in me really shaped my life. I mean, because I knew somebody trusts me, and I want to ensure that I don't break that trust. And that's also when you, like, financially, the sport is very expensive. Like, sailing is just incredibly crazy. Like, your shoes would cost you about 8,000 rupees, and they would, or a sail would cost you 40,000 rupees, and you can use it only professionally, like 4 or 5 events. So that's just 2 years you're spending 40,000 rupees. So, but for my parents, they made sure that somehow or the other, even if they had to reduce their expenses, they would, but support me in financial way, mentally. Like, there were few times when I just wanted to quit the sport because of all the politics, because each sport has its own politics. And so there were moments where I was like, no, I don't want to continue. But they would always come and encourage me. They would talk to me, make sure that I don't give up stuff because of someone else. If I have to give up, it should be because of myself. So they've been very strong in my whole journey, even for education. Like even right now, when I told them that okay, I want to do this entrepreneurship thing. Often what happens when you finish your education, people tell you, go do work experience, get everything, then you come back. But my parents and my sister had this thought that right now you don't have the financial burden on you, and this is the time where you can experiment, and even if you fail, it won't be a problem, because you have done your basic education, everything, and we are pretty sure that when you go and apply somewhere, you will get a job. you know but right now you have that liberty to try and experiment, which often I've seen that people don't have that. you know they don't get that time or opportunity to try this. So I've told them, okay, give me a year's time, and this is what I want to do. And they've been very supportive. They've been like, okay, do it, no problem. How much money would you require, what do you need? And they've been very honest with me, like this is our condition, this is what we can do, and rest is up to you. If you can manage with that, good enough, or you find your own resources. So they've been always very frank with me in terms of everything. So that support system has actually made me who I am.
Hmm. It's been really, it's been a very, very important role. I can see from
Yeah.
that. Clearly, I think in a sport that is not only, cost challenging, but also, in terms of just the dynamics of the mental part, can I actually do this? Is this sustainable? All of these questions, I think, keep running through most professionals' minds. So, yeah, I mean, kudos to your parents. They clearly have supported you, and yeah, and there's a lot
Yeah,
of,
totally.
there's a lot of how do you put it, the support is instrumental in your own success.
True, true. Completely agree with you.
Yeah. So I would like to know now, um, besides the financial aspect, um, what makes taking up sailing as a professional career an issue, and how does one make it big when sometimes the necessary support seems to be lacking? What do you think are some factors that will allow you to say continue on this journey, and how would you recommend other people who are, say, in offbeat sports, how would they go about pursuing that?
Being realistic is very important in all these things. And apart from financial point of view, it's also the politics and everything that surrounds a professional in sailing. What happens is we don't really have the kind of facilities in India that could make it quite cheap or sustainable for the sport as such. Because if I wanted to get into a professional, I have to go and train in Europe. I have to start competing in Europe. Only then I could. It's like, if you compete with the best is when you start becoming the best. So we don't have that kind of system in Asia as of now. There are people who are really good, but when it comes to world level, it becomes quite difficult, because unless you go and keep racing with the Europeans and everyone else, it's quite difficult. So the fact that the idea of living abroad and being continuously at it is also very challenging, and unless you have that financial support, it is not possible. One way where you can do this is, you can get into the services, you can get into army or the navy to continue your journey if you're very passionate about it. But even there, I would suggest, if somebody wants to, they should just make sure their basic education is done and they get in as an officer, because then they have more opportunities and people who would listen to them. Apart from that, the will is also very important. I mean, for me, there are few events that I couldn't go, like the Asian Games and everything, is only because that time I have other important things, like I said, exams, or I didn't have the funding before to train for those events. So I didn't even try competing for that trial, because I was very realistic in my approach, because there's no point going halfway. If you're going to do it, you do it properly and give your 100%, or else don't do it, because end of the day, it's going to hurt you and the people around you and the people who are actually trying to support you. So but also, side by side, what I've realized is, you should have your intentions very fixed and your goals quite fixed. Like for me right now, the kind of boat I'm sailing, it's not there in Asian Games. It used to be in 2014. Now it's come out, but uh, right now I'm presently ranked fourth in Asia in that. But that journey started off last year, where when I started telling people that, this is what I want to do. Is there people who are interested? Can we start building this team? Then start talking to people, get one by one people inside. So your goals have to be fixed and your intentions have to be fixed. And when you start working hard towards it, there will be people who will come automatically and support you. So your goals are very important, and you have to have that positive energy all the time. There will be people who will tell you, no, it is not possible, this can't be done, and everything. But if you keep working at it, I'm pretty sure you'll get some result, or you'll at least get close to what you want to achieve. So it is important to keep pushing yourself and be realistic with those goals, because the events that I planned, I know that even if nobody supports, I will be able to go for it somehow or the other. I know it is possible. It's not something which is like, now if I say I want to do Olympics, it sounds good, but is it realistic? Not possible, because you need that kind of funding. I need about 3 to 4 CR. I have to train 4 years continuously. And it is quite difficult because my family cannot support that. There are other sportsmen in my field who are doing those campaigns, and they have somewhere or the other some kind of financial backing or something like that. So it's important that, and don't look at it like, it has to be done in next 4 years. Make a long term plan. Say, okay, now, like for me, I know if my company runs and I'm able to make that kind of finances and everything, I'm pretty sure I will go back at it. I would try. Like Asian Games is still there, Olympics is still there. It's back of the head, but I know it can't be possible now, but in future it is possible. For that, I have to start building from now. It can't be like, oh, tomorrow I have to go for the next 22 Asian, like 2022. I have to be there in Asian Games. It's not. I have to be realistic. Right now, I'm trying for 2024 Olympics, because the class of boat that I'm sailing, it's going to come in 2024 Olympics. So I'm trying to build on that campaign. There are people who have not taken that much focus on this, but I've been the first initiator to make sure that, I'm the first one to go into this and become an expert before anyone else comes in.
Hmm. Very, very interesting. I think like very different from the traditional perspective, because when people say think long term, it, it's usually something that's ambitious. But clearly, you have added a different dynamic. It needs to be ambitious, but it needs to be realistic. It has to be planned. It has to be a well thought out approach.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be realistic. Like I said, you have to start living in present as well. Like you can keep living in the dream, but all these people who have achieved, they always were living in the present as well. Like they were doing things at present to make sure that they reach their end goal. It can't be just that you're sitting and dreaming about, oh, I'll go in 2024, I have to go Olympic. Unless you make those small steps now, you start working towards it, you talk to the right people, you tell everyone that what you want to. It's only then it's going to slowly begin, and that's where you're going to reach. It doesn't happen overnight. It always takes time to reach the end goal. So it's very important that people think it out.
Really, really interesting. I want to know, people always dream of turning their passion into their profession. As a spokesman for sailing in India, is there any advice that you have for people who want to really pursue their dreams, go after what they want? Is there anything that you have to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, passion, actually, as per me, passion should be turned into your profession, because then whatever you're doing is not only for yourself but also for the society or the community as such. um, for sailing, I've realized this, that even after winning all this, or there are athletes who are doing really well, there's not much awareness, or like people know, but they don't know how to reach out to these sports, or there's always been a lack of that connect. And especially with I've seen this over most of the colonial sports that were started by the British, but are slowly fading away, or the new traditional sports that are coming from other countries, like surfing or kite surfing and everything. The fact is that people don't know how to get reach to these sports, and they don't have the education of this. And that is only because nobody tried reaching out to them and telling them, see, these things exist, and you can get these. with technology and everything right now that is present with my company or my thought process. I'm trying to simplify these things and trying to educate people to make sure that they understand that we have these sports. Like most people in Chennai don't know that there is a sailing club in Chennai, whereas it's the second oldest club in sailing club in India, and it has been here more than 100 years. But still, people around that port also don't know that there's a sailing club which exists, and it's not because uh, people didn't want to know. It's because nobody told them. They wanted these clubs to be in a way of position of power under the British itself. They didn't want others to come in, and that has been the thought process behind most of these sports. They didn't want others to come into the sport, and that's where most of these sports failed right now, because financially they're not able to sustain. They've started to change their thinking. I've seen this in many of these sports where now they've started accepting people and they want people to take it up. And that's where I'm trying to get in to make sure that I publicize this, I market this in the right way, educate people, and then get them in it shouldn't be at a cost where person just comes and experiences it and doesn't really understand the sport or anything. It's just for an experience point of view, but they should also know a bit about the sport or what is happening. So I'm trying to build that community, trying to educate. But yeah, I mean, that is only because my passion was there for the sport, so I really understand what are the key aspects and how you have to work around it, or the right people that you need to speak to. So all this would only come because you're passionate about something, and that's when you'll be able to create a difference, is what I feel.
Speaking of passions, I'd like to know, what do you do in your spare time? What keeps you active? What keeps you alive? And what supplements your ability to perform either in sports or in business?
I think what supplements for me is having a good time with friends, going chilling, talking to people, going out there, socializing. It works for me. I mean, or spending time with family is something that I like enjoy. Uh, I make sure that I talk to my parents every evening. I go sit with them. I chill with them, and yeah, I mean that's what is. I don't know. That's what I enjoy, and that's what mostly I do in spare time. I also try and read about what is happening in the country. That's like a pastime for me. It's not that I want to keep myself updated. It's just nowadays I don't know. I find media to be too funny. I mean, it's just there's so much content available. That's something I try and enjoy. I mean, it keeps you updated as well as there's so much gossip around the country.
Some people watch sitcoms, but clearly you have found your own version of a sitcom.
Dude, I'm telling you, it's a good sitcom. Every day you open one channel, you'll find something funny going on it.
I think the Indian media will vouch for this as well.
Yeah, they're on their own trip altogether.
So I also want to know, anything that you do that contributes to your personal growth.
I mean, nothing in specific. There are a lot of things that I do in small variants. Like I said, that yeah, I make sure that I walk 30 minutes. Then I try reading newspapers or something like that. It's just to improve my English or the vocabulary or something like that. That I can at least speak to people, and there are certain things that build confidence. I mean, for me, and that's what I make sure that I keep doing on regular basis. Like I watch a lot of comic shows and stuff just to have good humor as well. So small things that I do, like I like connecting with people. I make sure I'm out there on social media as well, so that if somebody wants to talk to me, there should be an opportunity.
So that's been some crazy, crazy information that you've shared with us on really what does it take to become successful. Three lessons personally that I can make note of here is focus on the small things, be realistic, and yeah, don't sweat it. I mean, go for it. And really, I would say
Yeah.
that I would say that excel at everything that you do. That's what I've gotten from you, because at the end of the day, you've got to give it your all. There's nothing to hold back.
I mean, why do you want to hold back? My point is, if you're doing it, just do it perfectly, or try giving your best, because there's no point later on thinking that oh, I could have done this better. I mean, at that moment, whatever was the best, you just try giving that, and that shouldn't be another option, is what I think. But apart from that, in anything that you do, even if you're cleaning something, just make sure you clean it properly. Well, there's no point cleaning it. What is the point doing it halfway? Because it's not going to satisfy you or the person looking at it or anybody. It's just best for everyone that you give your best, and yeah, and don't worry too much about the result. What has to happen would happen anyway.
On that note, for those of you who are confused about how you can give your 100%, you're looking to crack the code of success, you're really trying to avoid failure at anything it is that you're doing, stay tuned for my next webinar where I'll be talking about this in greater detail and really break down what it takes to be successful at anything that you do. On that note, I want to thank Abhimanyu for coming on the show, and I'll be linking his social media handles below. Make sure you follow him, support him on his journey, because we need more support for offbeat sports like sailing. We need to support people who are doing amazing things like this. So, bro, um, I wish you the best with everything that you do, and I hope you crack the 2024 Olympics and win a medal for India. Also, I want to say that, whatever you have done so far is pretty commendable. Just keep going, and yeah, we're going to be cheering for you. I just want to know from you, is there one piece of advice that you would give to people today that would allow them to become successful at anything that they want for themselves?
Like I said before, I mean, one advice would be just start living in present. I mean, have future goals, but it's important to start living in present and make small steps, like, making sure that you take baby steps towards your goal. Not everyone can become overnight superstars. So it's better to be realistic and just, live in present. On that note, I would like to thank you, Vikram, and whatever you're doing with the program. I know it's damn good. It's wonderful that you've started this, and I would like to personally thank you for giving me an opportunity or a platform to speak to people, reach out there, because even for me, getting a platform to tell people all these things is important, especially right now where I'm in my journey at a starting stage, trying to build my own startup and everything. So it's always it's good to connect with people, like-minded people who are trying to make a difference. And yeah, I mean, kudos to you, and I'm looking forward to your program. If possible, if I could join and learn something from you, please let me know.
So yeah, that's really, really nice to hear. And well, bro, you have earned it, and everything that you have gotten so far, it hasn't come easy, but totally with the effort that you're putting in, and hopefully with some more support, I totally see this journey getting easier for you and anyone else who decides to take up an offbeat sport like sailing. The entire process is going to get easier, and that's usually how it works. Just think about it like this: you are today's spokesman for sailing, but many years later there'll be many such spokesmen, and the standard of the sport, the kind of quality of sportsmen that come from this, and the people who end up achieving will be a lot more. And as you know, in India there's no dearth of talent, so we just need to start tapping into more of the potential, and we need to nurture and raise young people, and that will allow us to ultimately reach a height that was previously unfounded. So once again, man, thank you so much for being here, and amazing learning from you. I think everyone got a lot of quality information listening to you, and it will help them get towards their version of success. So if you're looking to learn more of this amazing stuff from people who have been there and done that, the best of the best, stay tuned for the next episode of Vikram's Incredible 1000, the Success Podcast. Bro, I'll see you next time, and thank you so much for being here.
Sure, pleasure is all mine. And my God, there's so much intense talk we did here. And too intense. Yeah, I know. Especially all these things can, yeah, become little intense. I didn't know I could speak so much intense stuff. You brought out a new side of me. But yeah, it was fun. And I would like to tell people, please like, share, and subscribe to his page. He's doing a wonderful job. And do take this opportunity to join his program.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much.